Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namassami. Sevana cha balanam panditanam cha sevana puja cha pujaniyanam itam mangalamuttamang. So you recognize this first verse of the Mangala Sutta. Sevana, to not follow. Sevana cha balanam, the foolish, those of foolish ways. Panditanam cha sevana, to follow those of wise ways, skillful ways. This is and to honor that which is worthy of honor. This is the highest mangala, a mangala. Difficult word to translate. We have it as blessing or auspicious occasion. Another way of looking at it. What good fortune, an auspicious occasion to be able to follow the wise and also to have the chance to honor them, to give honor. And this in a way is one example of these five indriya that we brought up yesterday. It takes, five indriya, faith or uplifted aspiration, seeing that which one can feel uplifted by. Energy, because it uplifts the heart. So the right source of energy is the heart. Obviously we do all kinds of things with our bodies, but the energy we're looking at is heart energy. That which gives us motivation, chanda, eagerness, enthusiasm. And then of course we can apply that to our speech and our physical actions, but it really begins with that lighting up of potential faith. Energy arises. Sati, one stays with that, bears it in mind, tunes in, focuses on that experience, skillful states arising, skillful energy arising. One lingers, takes it in, the mind acquires unity. The citta unifies around that. As it unifies, it discards sluggishness, restlessness, impatience, boredom, lethargy, grumpiness, guilt, remorse, and so forth. Yeah. And so this is purification. So I'm saying yesterday's quote, Sacitta pariyo dasanam, to purify the mind. This is the teaching of the Buddha, all the Buddhas. And I generally translate mind as heart because perhaps it gets one out of one's head into something much more the feeling, motivating, proper motivating center. So these work together. So normally the citta is kind of wrapped in sense contact, sense data, very much experience itself being impinged upon by sights and touches, tastes, ideas. And when we're wrapping the citta in supportive faculties, so it's wrapped up, it's supported, it's bolstered by faith, confidence, aspiration, sense of having a purpose. We've all got plenty of energy. The problem is something that just leaks out and goes here and there, or goes nowhere useful. So something where you think, oh, that's where to put your energy into, because your faith has arisen. The energy then is for the subsiding of unwholesome states. One stays with that, bears it in mind, focuses on it, fastens upon that, and receives the results. The heart begins to unify from its discordant, fractured state into something more unified. This unification, samadhi, concentration, and wisdom occurs because one sees the process. And this is, one understands the process, and then you trust the process because you've seen it through. You get an example in this particular verse. You get an example of how they work together. And so wisdom is actually, but all of them are involved with everything, really. They're not just, that's the end of energy. No, wisdom, it takes energy to keep one's wisdom learning and inquiring. It's not, so we keep that sense of inquiry. What's going on? That takes energy. Doesn't mean frantic energy, it means steady, persistent. We're getting habitual, grasping, fantasizing, domineering, evasive, way that the citta ignorance wants to slip out of the stream, and placing it back. Placing it back in the stream of goodness. This is energy. So here we have this morning reading on 9th Sutta, the 48th chapter of the Samyutta. These 5 faculties, what 5? The faculty of faith, the faculty of energy, the faculty of mindfulness, the faculty of concentration, the faculty of wisdom. And what bhikkhus is the faculty of faith? Here, bhikkhus, noble disciple, is person of faith who places faith in the enlightenment of the Tathagata. The Blessed One is an arahant, perfectly enlightened, accomplished in knowing and conduct, fortunate, a knower of the world, unsurpassed leader of persons to be tamed, teachers of devas and humans, the enlightened one, the Blessed One. Some model that one can follow. If you'll trust the person, you can place your faith in, it won't let you down. And so, that, to honour that means you gives you a sense of what can you do. The Buddha doesn't need anything, particularly passed away anyway. But the honouring of that. That's what you can do. You bring it to mind, you kind of lift up, and you consider it, and you use it to lift your heart. So yes, and then lift your heart, and then, as the Buddha says, that you want to honour the Tathagata, you practice what he teaches. That's the way you give supreme honour. So Dhamma, Sangha, come along with that. And what bhikkhus is the faculty of energy? Here bhikkhus, a noble disciple, dwells with energy aroused for the abandonment of unwholesome states and the acquisition of wholesome states. Strong, firm in exertion, not shirking the responsibility of cultivating wholesome states. This is called the faculty of energy. What bhikkhus is the faculty of mindfulness? Here bhikkhus, noble disciple, is mindful, possessing supreme mindfulness and discretion, one who remembers and recollects what was done and said long ago. This is called the faculty of mindfulness. What bhikkhus is the faculty of concentration? Here bhikkhus, a noble disciple, gains concentration, gains one-pointedness of citta, having made release the object. This is called the faculty of concentration. What bhikkhus is the faculty of wisdom? A noble disciple is wise, possessing wisdom, directing to the arising and passing away, the phenomena, which is noble and penetrative, leading to the complete destruction of suffering. This is called the faculty of wisdom. These can be, this is one expression of it. These are pretty common themes in the suttas, these faculties, but they don't always appear in this particular list, so sometimes they're expressed differently. But here we're looking at it in this particular way, and touched on energy. Mindfulness, one stays with something, so the ability to remember and recollect what was done and said long ago, one is teachable. We can learn. We're a learning program. So you bear something in mind, you can bring something up and stay with it. You can recollect. A lot of our practice is just doing that. Every day recollecting our puja, chanting, Dhamma themes, Four Noble Truths, qualities of loving kindness, details of training. Repeat it, recollect it, repeat it, repeat it, repeat it. So it gets imprinted. Then this kind of overarching feature of mindfulness. It kind of establishes attentiveness and clarity of conduct. And then, of course, you can use it, that same faculty, when we're going down to mindfulness of body, recollecting, turning again and again and again to the object of what we're focusing our mindfulness on. And I was noticing how this kind of almost has a way of kind of imprinting itself. It means that certain habits of carelessness that we never really noticed, or taking things for granted, or cutting corners. In training, we don't do that. You take things through completely. You finish things off. You tidy things up. You see if somebody else needs something. So qualities, your energy is not just, some kind of gung-ho effort to make something happen. There's also one's energy is applied to supporting skillful states such as concern for the welfare of others, whether they're visitors, guests, monks, nuns, anagarikas, and so forth. As you recollect, this is all where skillful states can arise. You recollect mundane things that we don't necessarily feel that spiritual, like cleaning out the rain barrels so you don't get slugs and living in them. Staying with knowing where your robes are, down to details. And some of this can seem kind of fussy details, but that's part of that is to just challenge that attitude of mind, what we think liberation is. What we think purification is. Isn't it purification of our attitude, that some kind of netherworld I could get to, where I could be blissed out, or something like that? Isn't it just right now liberated from carelessness, liberated from insensitivity? I'm just all locked up in me and mine. I don't notice because I'm all locked up in me and my practice. Isn't liberation from that? Yeah. And so it's a kind of fundamental rewiring and go on. You start to lose some of the self-concern. Remember a bhikkhu here who had a psychotic episode for several weeks. Various voices in his head, feeling threatened, feeling frightened, feeling that enemy forces taking over. So we had to have give him a lot of attention. And then he had to go, get him to a clinic, get some medical help. The interesting thing was this person who was kind of technically psychotic, as soon as it's time to go, he makes sure he folds up his Sangati very neatly, puts it in his bag, ties up his cootie, and goes off to get his psychosis dealt with. So the training actually penetrated psychosis. You didn't know what day of the week it is, but you knew the proper protocols of how you behave as a bhikkhu. So, that's so like that sense of attentiveness and scrupulousness. Yeah, it's a very good way to look at how we apply our energy, and it's really taking things to heart. Because if we don't do that, then you end up being in a situation, everybody's in their own trip, their own head, doing their own thing, and you don't have a community. And then the sense of the tremendous resource of harmony and communality and fellow feeling that nourishes us is lost. Recognizing that we all go through bored states and negative states and so forth, and restlessness, and just a sense of something here that you really feel kind of very comfortable and even kind of loved or warmed up by fellowship. How important it is to cultivate those signs, those qualities. And the place speaks. The space speaks of careful attention. So, and that certainly since I came here, it's always been something I felt quite motivated to. Plenty of books, yes, wonderful talks, yes, but let the place speak for itself. The place has got space, it's clean, it's tidy, it's a sense of the natural elements to it are soothing, attractive, pleasing, calming. It will speak, and people will hear it and be comforted and pleased, and they will start to fall in line. It will start to train people to be careful. Then there's effort and energy to just cultivate a suitable environment. But its quality of energy and effort can be misunderstood, particularly we have these strivings in exertion. It means definitely one, isn't just sort of, you can go pretty much full throttle on something, very keen, enthusiastic, but it's always towards the dispelling of unwholesome states. You put yourself out. To even get uncomfortable or tired, you put yourself out, and you stay with it. So persistence is probably more, and carefulness is probably the things we need to bear in mind with exertion. I remember Luang Por Sucitto, when he was a junior, one or first or second Vassa, living with Ajahn Chah, and he thought, he was into all the ascetic practices, very keen, enthusiastic. So he's doing this, sitting through the night. He was sitting, putting maximum effort on sitting. Had a seizure. Toppled off the asana, which is generally, 2 or 3 feet high, onto the cement floor. Cracked his head open. It was caused this Wat Pa Pong in the 1970s. So it's pretty unsophisticated. They'd have a couple of guys hold him down, but somebody found a needle and started stitching his head up. No anaesthetics. Just if we got a needle, it wasn't a medical needle, it was just any old needle they could find in the sewing room. Stitch his head up. And then Ajahn Chah said to him, I think you should take it easy, you know. So it's a matter of balance, isn't it? Yeah. So right effort is also, and the wisdom that comes in to know where one loses balance. Mostly we lose balance, we've got ideas and theories. And they're not bad ideas, but they're ideas. And really what my sense is, what's most useful is to really, cultivate heart and bring it really the sense of living within your very body. This is a feature that's expressed many times in the suttas. One dwells touching the body with the deathless. One touches the deathless in one's body. A sense of when the heart, awareness or attentiveness or mind or whatever, you kind of comes out, you always feel the energy come out of your head, which is obviously highly inflamed and activated, into something much more, less sharply thoughtful. Just like you're walking, like imagine the kind of qualities it takes to walk in the dark, or walk in the forest in the dark. You're very attentive, but you're really in your body. And you can't use your thinking mind, it's not going to do you any good. Eyes aren't do you much good, you've got to really be very attentive. Yeah. And that's of course where our training came from, living in the forest. Didn't have a lot of ideas. But certainly very intelligent in that sensitive feeling things out way. And then you get balance, you stay grounded in what you're doing. And that also takes effort and energy to shift where you're coming from the head, from the me-mind, from the ideas, into I'm aware of the situation I'm in, contextual awareness, aware of the disposition of the body, aware of when unwholesome states, boredom, fatigue, indifference take over, irritability takes over, and I make an effort to rise out of that. Then we find, what can I honour? What can I serve? I find this has always been very helpful. So then one has the sense of the one-pointedness, to do the beautiful, to give oneself to the beautiful, to the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha, with the object, the aim, release, freedom. Freedom from becoming, time, getting somewhere, getting on with it, just no. Freedom from unwholesome states, release from unwholesome states. And you see how these unwholesome states are not necessarily that obvious. So the very sense of planning one's future. Where's that coming from? Restlessness, sense of finding one's own territory. I've got this and that, and next year I'm doing this, next year I'm doing that. I have a lot of this, but I find it a nuisance rather than a source of joy. It's something kind of imposed upon me by the fact that I want to serve the Dhamma by teaching. So you have to do this kind of stuff. But what I find uncomfortable about it, it keeps perpetuating a sense of me as some identity who's going to do this and do that and do this and do that, and next year do this and do that. I think, but that's kind of what I went for to get away from, the sense of an identity locked in time, You can really work with it. You know, just keep remembering, serving. And then these kind of identities, people give you these identities, you have to adopt it or accept the fact that this is a handy way for people to look at it, but you don't really hold it yourself as something that you make anything out of. Because the object is release. One is wise, discerning. How all these phenomena well up, originate, and welling up, and persistence, persistent mindfulness, energy, mindful, that will pass. So in this training then we're kind of grooming energy, so it's not slack, but it's also not frantic. It's not looking for, becoming. So I'm doing the great thing. I'm doing the great practice. I've achieved the great state. I am the great samana because I can do this, that, and the other. Then you want to actually move away from that target into just doing the duties. That's a big thing in our tradition. People often ask Ajahn Chah, Ajahn Mun, Luang Por Mun, what was he? Was he an arahant? Buddha, Ajahn Chah said, he was a good bhikkhu who did his duties properly. Just let's get out of this kind of race to be the greatest. And the other year we had Luang Por Thun, who passed away yesterday, commemorated. And he was here 3 or 4 years ago, Luang Por Thun, who's a very senior monk. And had another senior monk who was visiting. The senior monk, he had a kind of entourage of people with him. They came and we give a talk, and everyone come listen to the talk, and we, go and listen to his talk. And he gave his talk, and he went off and shot off somewhere else to do his thing, Didn't actually take in what we were doing at all. Just came and used this as a kind of platform to give his talk to his disciples, then shot off. And Luang Por Thun, I'd see him every day. He would sit in that kuti. Every day I'd see him just go out and sweeping the walkway, just with his broom, and sweeping. Skillful states, make the place clean. Skillful to be serving. I can do this. I don't understand the rest of it, but this is a place. It needs some attention. Sweep the walkway. Every day he'd be doing that with a broom. That's worthy of praise, to my mind. Worthy of honour. That's the wise. Well, that's what inspires me. Another sutta, what is the faculty of energy? The energy that one obtains on the basis of the 4 right strivings. So, the 4 right strivings, the effort, the application to lift up what is good, to hold it there, to sustain it, stay with it, to repel what drags you down, unskillful, and to keep doing that. And it says, then doing that is the basis for energy. So we apply energy to this, and the result is that you get more energy. So it's a circular thing. If you apply right energy in a right way to repelling unskillful states and supporting skillful states, one of the results is you get more energy. Because basically unwholesome states drain you of good energy. If you dispel them, you haven't got this drain of negativity, of grumpiness, of can't be bothered, of fault finding, of he's got this and I don't have that, these kind of things, or those drag you down. These are unskillful states, so they actually use your energy, and you can go in a whirlpool of this stuff. It does, that's what it does. You can recognize it when it starts to go into the whirlpool of going on and on and on about this and that and this and that, and you think, oh, this is called an unwholesome state. Whatever it says, however right it is, about how unfair and da-da-da-da-da, why should I bother with this, and that's the point of that. It's going on and on and on. It's got this suction that begins to suck your energy away. So if you cut that off, then you're plugging a leak. And the energy will then tend to regenerate. The energy is an interesting phenomenon. It's not a physical phenomenon. It's not an idea, but it's not a thought, but it's not bones and meat, but it's definitely a very fundamental experience we have. It's called something like a fine material, subtle material, and the nature of it is if you carefully groom it and circle it and cycle it and clean it, it increases. It becomes more rich and fluent. If you just throw it away, you drain it. If you put it into unskillful things, your energy drains. And I've noticed, in this life over the last nearly 50 years, how people can spend a lot of time digging themselves into a ditch of fault finding, can't do it here, can't practice, why should we bother with this? And just spend a lot of time obsessing, and then I can't, this is right, one of this renowned character, he was quite senior. He was always looking for the right place to do his practicing. So obviously, Wat Pah Pong was too busy. Too many people, somewhere else. He never found the right place to practice. And this went on for at least a decade, trying to find the right place to practice. And so he went down to Hartridge at one time. Oh, he can't practice here, Hartridge Monastery. So not being able to, he decided he couldn't practice it, so he didn't. He just sat in this kind of negative, bored state. So it paid off. Eventually decided he'd disrobe so he could find a better place, freer to find a place to practice in. And he's still trying to find the right place to practice in. You can go, what is practice? You see how unwholesome states will, when you really kind of penetrate this whole presentation of what we're with, we'll talk about the senses, 5, 6 senses, but if you sort of sit back within that container, then another set that comes to mind, what really touches the heart, isn't sight or sound or touch or thought. It's the perceptions that they stimulate. It's the feelings and perceptions and reactions. In other words, it's the aggregates. Yeah. So you can see something or not see something, and the perception can be a waste of time, boring, don't like this. And the perception is then the thing that really nails the heart. And that's where the unwholesome states arise from. When perception, you take a perception, or a perception arises, that is associated with aversion, restlessness, craving, self-interest. It's when those arise, they stimulate these kind of reactions of negativity and unwholesomeness. And you want to actually check the perception. It takes energy to halt that process. And then find a skillful way, wisdom, mindfulness to get a hold of that wisdom. Is there another way of looking at this? Now, for most of us, I don't know for yourself, but certainly for myself, monastic life at times has been very boring. Boredom as being a fairly frequent visitor. Because, you could say, well, it kind of is, That's true, it sort of is boring. I mean, same thing every day. What's going to happen today? We're going to do a puja, then we do our chores, and then we're going to have breakfast. It's about the same every day. What you can have for breakfast today? We're going to have for breakfast today what we had yesterday, and the day before, and the day before, and tomorrow it will be about the same. So that's kind of boring, or can give rise to boredom. Then what we can do today? Well, we're going to go out and do things. That's probably the most interesting bit. And then we have another meal, and then so on, then the evening puja. And you get into this kind of keep hitting the note of boredom and gradually get less and less attentive. And it can be very convincing. Until you begin to just, when you get into this, something creates a scenario that seems solid and permanent and lasting and real and true that I'm in. This is where you've got to actually, that's a warning sign. If you think you're in a permanent scenario, you just discovered something the Buddha never discovered, a permanent condition. What's making it permanent is because reiterating a particular perception over and over again until it becomes a kind of constant. I'm always being told what to do. I'm always having to do what I have to do. I'm always being told what to say and the other. Always? Always? Yeah. And look at it another way. Look at it another way. Put effort into the present. You come to the morning puja like it's the first one and the only one that you're going to do. Because who knows? And right now it is the first one. You keep it like that. Then how are you going to sit? How are you going to open your chest? How are you going to breathe? How are you going to bring those sounds out? Every actual moment in real experience is unique. Now you can make it dreary because you're not paying attention to it. You're not putting your heart into it. And you can find you do your chores and you put attention into how you do it, not just the same old thing. If you get used to sweeping the floor, take a look up the walls. You look at the cobwebs. Oh, never noticed that. No, because one's got sweeping the floor. Oh, yeah. Sweep a place, look around, And then a sense of freshness comes in. When you receive the porridge or whatever it is in the morning, oh, thank you so much. The kind of gnawing qualities in my belly will subside, and the people made this and did it for me. How wonderful. Look at it that way. So you can turn it around, and it takes effort to do that. But your effort is aimed at where can a skillful state arise? And where can unskillful states, how do they pour in and how they can be repelled through careful attention, wisdom, mindfulness, effort. And then you find energy comes to you because you feel you really begin to sense you're living in a situation that's actually really ripe and beautiful things are happening. You know, we're living in a situation of generosity, of faith, of lineage, recollecting the Buddha, recollecting our teachers. Oh yeah. And it lifts up. What was a humdrum becomes suddenly a rather magical situation. And fresh. And you're alert. The energy rises. Heart rises up. You stay with it. This is about waking up, isn't it? Instead of going into the habitual monologue, which is generated by what? Ignorance, inattentiveness, carelessness, habit, self-interest. Good. Now you know what it is, you clean it, you repel it, you make an effort with it, you exert yourself to find ways to uproot those. And this is going to definitely, it's not that we're constantly going around sweeping kutis and eating things. It's also, if you've cultivated a citta like that has ingenuity to it, has attentiveness to it, has faith in it, then when you sit still, the energy and the faith and the clarity of dissolving unwholesome states is going to be there. And you can start to appreciate simplicity of breathing in and out, which you could say is extremely boring. Except there's no one breath that's like the next, if you pay attention to it. And that's what's required. This is the kind of a conquest that doesn't seem like it's much of a conquest, because we're bringing it down to the mundane, everyday, here and now. That is where we're finding ourselves. And it's in this, through working with this is the, to me, the intriguing, exciting quality of the Buddha's teaching. It's just working with this very simple, earthy, mundane experiences carefully, that you generate and enrich the faculties that merge in the deathless. Give it some attention. So when you do walking meditation, if we're very much encouraged, this is a great opportunity to either go into walking up and down ho-hum. What's the point of all this then? Plod, 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 turn around, plod, plod, plod. Yeah, that's one way. One could get very bored with walking meditation. But you start to challenge. This is the way our mind can conceive walking. You get into how a body actually walks. Bring yourself into that. The feeling of the warmth, the textures of the body, the body's ability to balance, the coordination of the body as it moves, as the hips, the waist flexes, and the weights of the body shift from one side to another. And lead from your back foot. As you're walking, really getting out of the visual idea of walking, which is what we're programmed into. We're normally programmed into, I see the kitchen, I walk to the kitchen. I see the car, I walk to the car. Walking meditation, we're not walking to anymore. We cut that one off, walking to, because there's nowhere to walk to. So that walking to is a habit, that's always dependent upon a particular somewhere to go. Now, we switch that off, so we just want to experience how a body walks. The body doesn't need to have a direction or a destination, it just knows how to walk without falling over. And if you dwell in that energy of the body doing its walking, calming, steady, and that every footstep is as good as the next one and the last one, and you contemplate the flow of walking, then rather like breathing. It's very similar. You're not breathing in order to get somewhere, even psychologically. This breathing is just repetitive circling of energy. Walking is similar. It's repetitive circling of energy. You stay in that circle of it. Avoid to somewhere. Avoid that idea. Push that away, and you begin to, heart sits back and experiences the flow of the body walking. Internally, externally. That is, as we walk, we feel space opening around us, we feel textures on our skin, you feel the sense of being in an open environment. If there's no open environment, you can't walk, right? So there has to be space. So as you walk, you feel the sense of space in your walking. It's that space that means your thinking comes up, and you just keep walking your thinking into space. Ideas and thoughts, moods and energies well up when you're walking, and you walk with them like you're walking, carrying something along into the space in front of you, till it begins to drain. You just clear it, you don't lock onto it, you don't adopt it. You follow the wise. The wise walk just walking. The end result is the mind becomes, Citta becomes unified, because it's given up time, it's given up getting to, and it's given up these pernicious structures, mental structures of time and space and destiny and purpose and getting onto an exciting peace. Given those up, and then there's a calming, gathering, collectedness with the object here is release from unwholesome states. So let's take some time for direct practice. And we'll just sit for a little longer till it's time to go out for the walking practice.